Hi friends, welcome to Moms and Money, where we talk about managing money, making money, and saving money for the women in the household. So we all know who Dave Ramsey is. He's the author of Total Money Makeover. He's one of the most influential people on personal finance and motivates a lot of people to get out of debt and pay an astronomical amount of money to get themselves out of debt. He's definitely an icon, a legend when it comes to living a debt-free life. Most of us came to that journey because of someone like Dave Ramsey. So I have nothing but respect for him. I know his baby steps work, and he's, like I said, a legend. But there were a few things that we did differently when we had to pay our consumer debt down. You know, Charles and I, which is my husband, we've been consumer debt free for 6 years now. And it took us 3 years, but we got there, you know, and Dave Ramsey was definitely one of the people that I always went to when it came to motivation. But let me share some of the things that we did differently from his plan. You know, the one thing with Dave Ramsey, he's very much so black or white, like it's either you're doing it or you're not. And sometimes it's just not that easy for everybody. Everybody's circumstances are different. And some things you just have to change in order to get to where you need or want to be. And so these are some of the things that we changed so that it would make it easier for us to make it to that financial goal of paying off all of our consumer debt. If you didn't know, my husband and I paid off $60,000 worth of debt. That included car notes, student loans, and credit cards, the top three, those big three things that always keep the middle class in the middle class. We paid all of that off within those 3 years. And like I said, Dave Ramsey was very, very influential in us making that decision. But again, we tweaked his plan a little bit differently so that it will work for us. So let me explain to you what the baby steps are and what the Dave Ramsey baby steps entail. Okay, baby step 1 is to save $1,000 to start your emergency fund, because you just never know what life is going to throw at you at any time, and you want to be able to have money saved in order to pay for those things so you don't keep getting yourself in debt or getting yourself worse in debt. So that's baby step number 1. Baby step 2 is to pay off all of your debt, all of your consumer debt, and consumer debt consists of, you know, credit cards, student loans, personal loans, hospital loans, everything except for your mortgage you're going to pay off, and that's what baby step 2 is. Baby step 3 is to save 3 to 6 months of emergency fund in your bank to save that cash in case anything happens, so that if you lose a job or anything like that, you don't have to fall back into debt to live, to just provide a roof over you and your family's head, on food, and to put food on the table. Baby step 4 is to invest 15% of your income, and that's not your gross income, but your net income, to save 15% of that. So that's taking your paycheck after all the taxes and your health care and insurance, all that is taking out, then you save 15% of that, of your income from there. Baby step 5 is to save for your kids' college fund. So that's just putting money away in whatever kind of investment vehicle you want to use to save for your kids' college fund. Baby step 6 is to pay off your mortgage and your home early. And baby step 7 is to live and give like no one else. That's like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, is to be able to live. And baby step 7 is just to give and live freely. So those are all the baby steps, traditionally the way that most Dave Ramsey followers go about paying off their debt and just, I guess, reaching financial freedom, because that's essentially what baby step 7 is. So here are a few things that we did differently. Number 1, now Dave Ramsey always suggests that you do them in order and you work on one baby step at a time. But for Charles and I personally, we did baby steps 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time. Because for us, $1,000 just wasn't enough for us for where we were at that point in time of our life. So I was pregnant with Zara, and we had a house. We had bought this house, and when you have a home and you start a family, like sometimes $1,000 just isn't enough to take care of any sort of emergency that may arise or present itself, especially if you have children. So we had to come up with an amount that we were comfortable with, and I suggest that you do the same. And we were able to do baby steps 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time because I kind of had to navigate our cash flow, right? Because things would come up, and I knew these big expenses would come up, so we would start saving for that, and maybe cut back on paying off our debt. But then when were smooth sailing, where we didn't see any foreseen big changes, we were able to throw all that extra money at debt. And that is kind of a hard thing to navigate, but I teach all of that in my course, Over Budget to Overjoyed, which is linked down below in case you're interested. But you kind of have to fine tune it the way that it works for you, okay? Not everybody can do baby steps 1, 2, and 3 at the same time, and that's fine. Maybe it works for you to do baby steps 1 and 2 at the same time, or maybe it works for you to just do one at a time at the same time. But the goal is to just get them done at the end of the day. But that's one of the things that we did differently. So we did baby steps 1, 2, and 3 all at the same time. So by the time we were consumer debt free, we had our emergency fund saved. You know, obviously we had more than $1,000 for our emergency fund, and all of our consumer debt was paid. And we are actually currently in baby steps 4, 5, and 6 right now. Number 2, and I talked about this already, we saved more than $1,000 in emergency fund in the beginning. Because like I said, it just depends on your life circumstances. If you're a single person and maybe you live in an apartment, $1,000 would suffice you. Maybe even $500 will suffice you. But if you have a family and you have a home, you never know with a home, anything can happen, you know? So $1,000 just wasn't enough for us. I mean, if you have a family, you may want to think about increasing that as well. So that's something that we changed in the plan, but it still worked out for us. Number 3, and this is a big one and quite controversial, I would say, in the Dave Ramsey world, and that is we did not use all cash and use the cash envelope system the entire time. We did it on certain periods where I felt like we needed focus and attention in that certain budget category because we were overspending. But essentially, we did not do the plastectomy, which he likes to call it, where you cut up all your credit cards and stuff like that. We still used one credit card while we paid off all of the other ones and just kept paying that off in full at the end of the year so that our credit was good, because that's something else that we did different, is like we cared about our credit. We cared about our credit score. I know Dave Ramsey's huge about not caring about your credit score, and it's just a score that tells you, you know, how much money you can borrow. But to me, the credit score is much more than that. With the profession that I was in, I had to have a good credit score. No, your jobs do check your credit. And, you know, I care about it because it could be a tool that you may need in the future, which is good credit. So I cared about that. So we really built and worked on rebuilding our credit while we were paying our debt off, and that's definitely possible. I did a whole series about your credit score, how to pay off collections, and how to increase your credit score quickly. You can tap this I right here to watch it. But we did not go back to, we did not use the cash envelopes system for everything. I know Dave always recommends that use your cash envelopes for every budget category that you can, and that works for some people. Some people are diligent enough to do that, but for my husband and I know I would probably be the diligent one, and then he would probably be like, what are you talking about? I'm not carrying this around, you know? And that's hard to manage sometimes if both people aren't on the same page. Now, we did budget meticulously. I stuck to my zero-based budget. I still use the same spreadsheet that I did, that I created all those years ago. That's worked for me and many thousands of you who have downloaded it. But we did not use the cash envelope system, and we were okay. You know, don't get me wrong. I love using cash for certain categories, like maybe groceries or getting your gas and stuff like that. I sell cash envelopes. I love them so much. I think you could do so much with them. Shameless plug. The link for my cash envelopes are in the description box. But I did not use cash envelopes for everything, and that's okay. We still succeeded. You know, the goal is to stay on budget. That's your goal. And if you're having a hard time with that, then I would suggest trying the cash envelope system, even if it's just for yourself and maybe your husband or spouse. Let them still do whatever they need to do as long as they're staying in budget. But maybe for you, if you need help, start using the cash envelope for just your portion of the budget. I mean, it does help. Don't get me wrong. It helps and it works. But it's just not for everybody. Number 4, the fourth thing we did that was differently is we did not stop contributing to our retirement fund. Dave suggests that you can't stop all of that and just put all of your money towards your debt. But we didn't want to do that because it's not money that we were used to receiving. We had been contributing to retirement ever since, you know, when you started working out of college. And I didn't want to just stop that in order to throw all your money at debt, because stopping that can be really detrimental, especially later on in life. You'll be happy that you continue to contribute to your retirement if you can. So that's something, since we weren't used to having that extra cash, we just continued to contribute to our retirement fund and let our retirement fund grow as we were paying off our debt. And the last thing that we did that was different is we did not pay the smallest debt first. So Dave Ramsey suggests that you pay your debts with the smallest balance first to give you that momentum to just keep going and just crush it and get what he likes to call gazelle intense, meaning you are just focused on your debts. You want to crush your goal and just pay off all your consumer debt. You're just throwing every extra dime you get at your debt. Okay, so, but we did something a little bit differently, and what it's now called the avalanche method. And, you know, Dave calls that method of paying off the debt with the smallest balance, the debt snowball, where you just keep going. I didn't know this is what this term was called back then when we paid off our debt, but we paid off our debt with the highest interest rate first. And that was what we did because I knew that was going to save us the most in the long run when it comes to interest. So if you pay off the debt with the highest interest rate first, you're not going to pay as much money in interest in the long run. So that is what we did, which for us at the time was the credit cards, for hands down, for sure. That's what we did first. Then we worked on cars and then student loans, because at the time my student loan had the lowest interest rate. So that's kind of what we did that was differently. And it still worked out for us, you know? So I say all this to say, you guys, it's not so black and white, and it's not like, I don't want you to get discouraged if you feel like you can't do Dave Ramsey's plan, or maybe you follow Susie Orman, or maybe you follow Clark Howard or Mr. Money Mustache, whoever you follow. You know, you don't have to just do what they say and do it exactly that way, especially if it makes you uncomfortable or something that you feel like you can't fit with your circumstances. You know, try to change it. Now, don't get me wrong. Everybody I just mentioned, I feel like they're brilliant. They would be great role models, and the advice that they give is very, very solid. But at the same time, you've got to do it so that it works for you and your family. You've got to do what you have to do to stay on course, to stay on path, to stay on track, to stay in your lane, sis. Stay in your lane. So do whatever you have to do to change it up so that you can make sure that you achieve your financial success. So leave a comment down below and let me know. Did you change anything? Who do you follow? If you follow Dave Ramsey, did you change anything on his plan? Are you changing anything on his plan? Do you plan on it in the future? I would love to know. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, you can tap my picture up above, and you can also check out my previous video right over here, and all of my social media platforms all listed down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.